Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be diving into an important topic: how we as Christians can support the people around us who are struggling with their mental health. And to guide us, we are going to look into one of the oldest stories in the Bible, the book of Job. Job went through an immense suffering, and instead of being comforted, he was met with friends who thought they knew it all. Friends who were dismissive, friends who were prideful. And Job's experience literally shows us what not to do when someone is in pain. And it also reveals the kind of approach, the kind of tone, humility, and compassion that we should bring offering support. In this video, we are going to break down how to be there for someone without coming across as a know-it-all type of person or making them feel judged. And especially as youths, we've been victims of know-it-all adults, adults who can't be compassionate towards us without trying to diminish our feelings, without trying to constantly make us feel small compared to them, always trying to use their experience as a way to boast and as a way to belittle the youth. So this is a very important topic that is dear to my heart. You don't have to be old, you don't have to be 50 years old to have feelings of pride in you, that you can barely talk to someone without belittling them. No, this can be someone of 20 years old, 18, who is belittling someone that is younger than them. So this is not just for the elders, this is also for young adults who are going to constantly keep growing. So let's dive in. I made a PowerPoint, and this PowerPoint will be available for anyone who wants to use it or read it, and it will be in the description below. So it starts with a Christian approach to mental health and humility. Deep study of the book of Job. The damage of being a know-it-all adult. So one very interesting thing is the fact that Job's friends, they came all the way from afar to meet Job and to be there for him and to support him. And they stayed in silence for a while with him. This is very important. Sometimes we might not know the answer to everything. Sometimes your friend in that moment doesn't need a solution. They just want a listening ear, someone who is going to be present in that moment. Even if you don't say a word, even if you are just going to pray with that person, you don't need to act like you know it all or try to talk about your experience and make it about you. No. One very important thing when it comes to like validating someone's feelings is being able to listen. Sometimes that is all people need, a listening ear and your presence. What I just told you regarding Job's friends, it takes a huge turn. Like everything was cool, right? When his friends came, they sat with him, they stayed in silence because his suffering was too much for words. Literally, that's what he's written, it was too much for words. But when they started to speak, they ruined everything with their arrogance and with their pride and judgment. They thought they knew so much about what was going on based on their own experience. And it ruined everything because even if they wanted to talk about the experience, the way they talked to him came with lots of belittling and judgment and false accusations. So let's go to the next slide. So one very interesting thing is that I highlighted some important verses, especially for the youth. You probably heard this so many times, right? We have studied life. This was from Eliphaz. We have studied life and found this all to be true. Listen to my counsel and apply it to yourself, we have studied life. From my own personal experience, that phrase can be a bit frustrating to hear, because again, the next thing that comes after that is constant belittling. Oh no, you don't understand this and that, I know more than you, we have studied life. When another usually says we have studied life, it's almost like it gives no room for having a different opinion. You can't have an opinion, you can't have a say, because you are too young to understand. You don't know much about life. But there are certain things that you don't need to live for ages to understand. The issue is when elders say we have studied life, right? It's almost like it also gives them no room to want to actually learn. You will never know it all. You will never know it all. And if you are getting upset by what I'm saying, you're getting upset by what I'm saying, take your anger right now, go to God, and let God touch your heart. Because if this is triggering you, there's a reason why. You will never know it all. And don't think that you cannot learn from someone who is younger than you. Because God can make use of anyone. Wisdom does not have age. Yes, wisdom can come with experience, but first and foremost, wisdom comes from God. And He doesn't look at your age before giving you wisdom. Because wisdom starts with the fear of God. That's how it starts. So especially if someone, a young adult, is a Christian, don't diminish their thoughts or their opinions or their advice, anything they say, and not take it in just because you have studied life and you know much more than them. They can also tell you something that is sensible, something that is full of wisdom, something that is godly, that is biblical. So when people say we have studied life, it gives no room for learning. It's not everyone who says we have studied life doesn't want to learn. But unfortunately, many adults use this as an excuse to belittle the young ones. Especially if they have an opinion or anything, they shut them down immediately with, we have studied life. We have studied life. We have so much more experience than you do. And no one says that you guys don't have much more experience than we do. We just don't want you to belittle us. You see, I see on Instagram advices from 90 years old, 30 years old women giving advices to like so many things, right? And you see so many likes whenever these videos pop up on TikTok, on YouTube. But the thing is, the moment, like, we want to learn from people who can be our father figures or mother figures. We want to learn, but we don't want to learn from prideful people. People who constantly belittle us. The first thing they say, oh, you young ones always think you know everything. Yes, there are people who think they know everything. But that is not in the majority of the cases. If we could actually talk to someone who was humble in spirit, we would literally go all the time to them to ask for advice. Because we want to learn and we want to grow. But how can we learn and grow if we're talking to someone who is full of pride? If we're talking to someone who belittles you because you are young, no one wants to go to that kind of person. And that is why even for a leader, having humility is very, very important. Another interesting thing is when it says, listen to my counsel and apply it to yourself. Just because it worked for you doesn't mean that it's going to work for me. Just because something worked for someone else doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So you can listen, you can learn, but that doesn't mean that you have to follow their same footsteps. This is another mistake that we make in general, especially elders. They always want to see things based on their experience and not want to look at things outside of their experience. This is why I say when you say we have studied life, it limits you from learning. When it comes from a place of pride, it might be coming from a place of pride, but you don't even know that it's coming from a place of pride. So in this case, they were talking about they were looking at this from their own experience, and they were telling him to take counsel and to apply to himself, but it couldn't be applied to him. You see, the next thing is Job says, "Don't I have the right to complain? Does anyone want the tasteless white of an egg? One should be kind to a fainting friend, but you accuse me without any fear of the Almighty? Do you think your words are convincing when you disregard my cry of desperation? I cannot keep from speaking. I must express my anguish. My bitter soul must complain." So all these verses I just read were taken from different chapters, right? But the point still stands. You see, as Christians, sometimes people think that whatever you're going through is because of your sin, whatever you're going through is because of lack of faith, whatever you're going through is because you're not praying enough. It's not always the case. And we have Job as proof. Suffering is not always a result of a lack of faith. Or this also shows how, because his friends were clearly being dismissive to his feelings and just talking about God. What they were saying is true to a certain extent, but it did not apply all the time. So, for example, in the case of Job, so this makes me think about when you are expressing your pain to a Christian, the first thing they'll tell you is, "Did you forgive them?" Or, you should pray. Everything is happening right now because you don't like faith. Or, please don't be depressed. Christians are a light. You shouldn't be crying. Don't be depressed. Just be happy. No. You need to learn how to give a listening ear. How to listen to someone's pain. Let them complain. Let them let it all out. Don't try to shut them down. Like, even when it comes to preaching the gospel, there's a time to do it. It's not that someone just opens up to you and immediately you start bombarding them with wait, listen, take it in first. This is what it means to be empathetic, to be able to put yourself in someone's shoes. And when you lack empathy, this is the result. Because they kept bombarding him. He said, "Don't I have the right to complain?" He has the right to complain. He just needed time and a listening ear. And I took another verse. This was from his other friend, Bildad. He said, "How long will you go on like this?" Again, another thing, impatience. We need to learn how to be patient with people who are going through things that we might not even understand. People who are going through hard seasons of their life. We need to learn how to be patient with them. Give them time. Don't just tell them to pray it away and get over it. It's not going to work. You need to give them time. And your job as a Christian could either hurt them, whatever you say could either cause more pain, more frustration, or it could actually encourage them. Next thing, Job. This is another verse again. "If I decide to forget my complaints, to put away my sad face and be cheerful, I would still dread all the pain." You see, one very interesting thing is that Job acknowledged his pain. Many Christians are like, "No, I don't want to proclaim it with my mouth." I feel like low-key that is delusional. Because if you're going to go to God and tell him, "I'm not okay," it's not like you are so scared of what the words of your mouth that you're not, like, you need to be honest. You need to be honest about how you're feeling. Because we're not talking about something that could happen. We're talking about something that is already happening. Something that is reality. So if you are sick, for example, you're not going to say, "Oh, God, I'm fine, but I need healing." You're going to be like, "God, I have this specific illness. I'm sick. Please, God, I want you to heal me." You need to be honest. But even aside from this, right? We need to, instead of trying to shut down your emotions, your feelings, you need to acknowledge them the same way Job did. He was very expressive. He was very open about what he was feeling. So one thing that I liked here was the fact that he was open about his pain. And the worst thing that could ever happen is when you're open about your pain and someone tries to shut you down and constantly keeps hurting you with their pride and arrogance. So just because you tell someone to just put in a happy face and you just give them some Bible verses or tell them to pray it away, don't expect them to suddenly get over it and just be happy. No, you give them time. Because they could even forget it, but they would still feel it. That's the truth. Stay away from people who are going to dismiss your pain, who are going to belittle you, who are going to just make you feel worse. Because his friends, they were just making him feel worse. Because in fact, there's literally a verse that says, like Job was saying at this point, if you're just going to do this, it's better you just keep quiet, keep silent. Sometimes instead of yelling your prideful, arrogant speech, it's better to keep quiet, especially if you don't fully understand the situation. Because even if you're an elder and you have so much more experience, that doesn't mean that you understand the situation or your experience applies to their experience. So we need to be very careful. And again, this is not just for elders, this is also for us young adults. And moving on, we also see one of his friends that calls him empty-headed. How many times have we been called stupid? How many times have we been called all sort of names, all sort of things, because we are not old enough, or like we have been called so many things, but still, like, this is so draining. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. Even if you're an elder, you have so much experience. This is literally an example of belittling. You can have the experience of the whole world, but that does not give you the right to belittle someone just because they don't see things the way you do. That doesn't give you the right. And we think the Bible doesn't have everything. It literally has everything, and God literally understands us. Which brings me to my next point. So we talked about listening carefully, which connects to Job chapter 21 verse 2, which when Job told his friends, listen carefully, listen closely to what I am saying. That's one consolation you can give me. So we talked about listening carefully, because listening literally is a consolation. Instead of you spewing word salad, you can actually just listen, because it could be a consolation to someone. So the second thing you could do is let your counsel be satisfying. And I want to connect this to this chapter, Job chapter 29 verse 21 to 25. It says, everyone listened to my advice. They were silent as they waited for me to speak. And after I spoke, they had nothing to add, for my counsel satisfied them. They longed for me to speak, as people long for rain. They drank my words like a refreshing spring rain. When they were discouraged, I smiled at them. My look of approval was precious to them. Like a chief, I told them what to do. I lived like a king among his troops and comforted those who mourned. Do you know how to comfort in the right way? This is why I'm making this video. Do you know how to comfort in the right way? Do you know how to be empathetic? Do you know how to listen? Do you know how to talk with humility? But you see the way Job literally spoke. That was the opposite. That is how Job did things. But it was the opposite of how his friends were handling things. So you need to ask yourself, is my counsel satisfying? Because as I said, many of the youth, they actually want counsel, but from people who are humble, not from prideful people. So if you are humble, you see people want to come from more youth will want to come from more. But if you are arrogant, you lose the privilege to counsel. That's the truth. And third thing, remember, if you choose to be full of arrogance and pride, you have to face God. So be mindful of how you treat others. These friends were punished in the end because of what they did, how they treated Job. They were punished in the end. Which brings me to my next point. A multitude of people claiming to speak for God doesn't make it right. As I said, just because they experience something, that doesn't mean that it applies to you. Just because someone says what they are saying is from God, that doesn't mean that it's for you. Not every message is for you. Just because they claim to speak for God, that doesn't mean they're speaking for God. So be mindful of what you say, because your experience, especially people who try to undermine other people's experiences, other people's testimonies, because that is not what happened to them. Calm down. Your experience, or they tell you how to handle this because calm down. Your experience is not their experience. We really need to test the spirit and see if this person is speaking for God, because there are literally people who will drain you, who will make you live worse than you came in. This is why I don't talk to every elder. I talk to people who I feel people who are humble. People who are humble. Talk to people who are humble. You'll feel different. Don't talk to that elder that always want to annoy it all. Even those parents, you ask yourself, why doesn't my kid talk to me? Because you are prideful. They don't feel comfortable talking to you because you always want to impose your opinions. You always want to impose how you view the world. You don't give off a humble spirit. That's when your child does not come to you. It's that simple. This is literally the rule of life. People, like, if you are humble, people will soak in what you say. Like, there's an energy that you exude. So do not be swayed by those who speak loudly, but they lack humility and compassion that genuinely reflect God's heart. If they don't have humility, if they don't have compassion, don't listen to them. Go the other way and look for someone who truly reflects God's heart. So this is all, guys. This is all. Like, youth, be encouraged, rise up. Do not let anyone put you down. Do not let anyone belittle you, because sometimes we let ourselves be belittled too soon. We need to really understand our power. Understand that wisdom comes from God. Be open to counsel, be willing to learn, but be willing to learn from the right people. Because there are some people who will literally destroy you. That has happened to me. If you go talk to someone, and one of the things with respect and humility, and they reply to you with prideful words, belittling you for your age, don't talk to them anymore, guys. Don't talk to them anymore, because they don't reflect God's heart. And they might tell you that what they are telling you is from God, but it's not from God. If it comes from a prideful spirit, if they are full of pride, unintentionally or intentionally, it's not from God. Talk to people who reflect God's heart, because true leadership is humility. If you don't have humility, you're not a good leader. How can you lead correctly if even God himself is humble? Jesus was humble and he was a leader. So who are you? Just because you have so much experience, life experience, you want to use it to belittle other people, be prideful. The Bible has everything. And Job is literally an example of how damaging it can be to deal with such people, not one, not two, but three. Claiming, oh, it's God, and they impose it with pride, wanting you to look at things based on their own experience. But I want you to be encouraged. Be willing to learn, be willing to take counsel, but from the right people. That is for the youth. And regarding mental health, know how to listen, be empathetic, and be compassionate. Don't shut people down immediately, because it doesn't show you have so much faith. No, because the way some of you act, you actually draw people away from the faith instead of closer to the faith. So the way we behave, the way, like, as Christians, we are supposed to weep with those who weep. Comfort people, but you know how to comfort. Maybe you don't want to deal with that person's problem. Just say, look, I'm not in the mental state to deal with this right now. But don't talk to them and then you immediately shut them down, telling them to pray it away. Oh, it's because of this, it's because of that. You don't know everything. You don't know why that person is experiencing what they're experiencing. Yes, sometimes it's evident that some things we experience is because of our sin or because of an action, but it is not always the case. So be careful with trying to speak for God, with trying to make accusations or judgments that are not even in your place to make in the first place. So that is what I want to talk about. Please share this video, this amazing video, with as many people as you want, especially the youth, because this video is to empower the youth. Share this video with many people, and I love you, and I hope to see you in my next video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment if this video resonates with you. Love you.